Hello and welcome to episode 52 of Waxing Lyrical with Mainz and Dutts. I'm Mainz, and the Jar Jar Binks in this relationship, Mr. Neil Dutton.
I'm not even going to dignify that with a response.
You're not going to dignify that with a response. For the people who don't listen to the UK End Zone Football programme, Neil was on it on Wednesday, and they had a brief conversation around which, in your group of friends, which Star Wars character would you be? So this one was Neil would be Jar Jar Binks. So there we go. You'll notice today two things on the podcast. There's no sound effects. Boo to technical problem by Dutton, by Maisie, sorry. But you'll also notice that Dutton sounds like he's actually, you can actually hear him. That's because I've downloaded a new program. So speak, Neil.
Yeah, it's very impressive. IT boy.
It's good, isn't it? At least when this podcast ends, I won't hear the review of it between you and Tom.
At the end, there's nothing wrong with being perfectionist and seeking excellence and looking back on a job well done.
It was a job well done, Neil. I was very proud of you for taking the reins on that show on short notice as Ollie was off sick.
Well, God doesn't make us heroes; He just gives us the circumstances.
Exactly, Neil. Exactly. So, on today's podcast, Waxers, we're going to talk you through Sachin Tendulkar, who this time last week or a bit earlier announced his retirement from international cricket, where he's going to play two more tests, final one in Mumbai against the West Indies, and reach 200. We're then also going to talk you through dynamic duos. No, not me and Neil. We're going to talk you through ones on TV. So first of all, let's go on to Sachin Tendulkar. I haven't got a sound effect, Dalton, so I'm just going to make them up.
That was a frightening noise.
It was, wasn't it? Talk me through Sachin Tendulkar, Neil.
Sachin Tendulkar has been playing Test cricket since 1990. When the tall India came to England, it was a series of much run getting. It was the series in which Graham Gooch scored 333 and 123 in the same test. There were all the centuries in that game. He made a century at Old Trafford that really announced himself to the world. And so in two tests' time, when he reaches 200, that'll be it. He stopped playing one days. He's only played one T20 international, though he has played T20 for the Mumbai Indians in the IPL and the Champions League. But yeah, in two test time, that's pretty much it.
So Dalton, I think people, if you don't watch cricket, you may not have heard of Sachin Tendulkar because you're probably listening to us from England or America. Unless you are listening to us from India, hello, welcome. Greetings across the globe. Can you try and explain the cultural significance of Sachin Tendulkar to India?
In terms of the country of India, which is it's always spoken of in the subcontinent, cricket's a religion. It's a religion in Yorkshire as well. So let's not take it to extremes. Sachin has carried the hopes, dreams, and expectations of over 1 billion people every time he's gone out to bat. And I'll just put this into some context. He's played 198 tests and 463 one-day internationals. So, that's pretty close to 700 times, 700 matches, because a lot of tests obviously has to bat twice. He's gone out knowing that the eyes of the nation are on him. I saw a banner at a game a few years ago, and it said in it, "Quick, you can commit." It said, "Quick, commit a crime. Even God is watching Sachin bat."
I heard an interview on BBC Radio with one of the Indian opening batsmen. I can't remember the name of him right now. And he basically said that at times the Indian fans were telling them to get out so Sachin Tendulkar could come in and bat. They didn't pay to come and watch whoever it was. They came to pay and watch Sachin bat.
Yeah, the opening batsmen were there to get the shine off the new ball and then then depart the scene.
This is it, and I think what I'd like to do, Neil, is anyone in any sport really been that vital to a nation or a group of people? And I came up with 3.
Okay.
I've got Muhammad Ali for boxing as a whole, for African Americans, and also I suppose for the Nation of Islam, although whether you like that or not, probably a different matter. but he stood up for what he believed in a multitude of different things, and backed those things up, and became possibly the most famous sportsman on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie Robinson, who was the first African American baseball player, broke. In the past, there was a apologies for the language, was what was called a Negro League and a White League, and he was the first player who played in the Negro League to come and play in Major League Baseball. He played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. I don't think, from an English point of view, it's tough to understand how an important a moment that was, and how controversial it was, and how much issues it brought. And
why, just interrupting your question, why there's a certain game every year that all players wear 42, is that right?
Yeah, that's Jackie Robinson Day, so in baseball he's got his own day.
So that's how important
he is. Important he is. And the final one is a new person, and I had a conversation with Tony, and Tony wanted me to put Jonah Lomu in, who's, I think, is a very valid point. When Tony told me about him, the fact that the size of him, and the fact he had lots of injuries, and he basically changed the way people, basically made rugby union professional. It's a pretty big thing, but because you stick with what you know, I went with Tiger Woods. Again, an African American guy playing golf. Not only is he that, he then brings Nike, the biggest sports brand in the world, into golf, and brings a whole new group of people who never watched golf before into that world.
Okay. The one that I will say, and it's fitting because this gentleman who was asked about Sachin Tendulkar and paid him the compliment, he reminds me of me, and that would be Sir Donald Bradman, whose basically his importance to cricket and Australian cricket and Australia at the time. And Australia was, quite an impoverished colony at the time. It was, it had very little over the Great Depression, literally. And the thing is about Don Bradman as well. Obviously, I'll use the term loosely because he was an amateur cricketer. He was never a professional cricketer. He had other jobs that he had to do and he had to work around them when he played. Obviously, if you've got the best, if you employ the best cricketer in the world, it's going to be very good publicity for you. You're going to give him time off to play. But after the war, the country, there's always this sense we needed to get back to normality, and England and Australia, the most normal thing to do was to play cricket again. And even though he probably was past his best, he was still Don Bradman. So the Australians needed Bradman to play for Australia against England after the war. And as we know, Don Bradman is a batting phenomenon. As we know, his first class career record, because it does actually bear comparison. His first class career record, he played 234 first class games, scored 28,067 runs. He had a high score of 452 not out, and he had a career average of 95.14 with 117 50s and 117 hundreds and 69 50s. Sachin Tendulkar, 307 first class games, 25,228 runs, high score of 248 not out, average of 57.86 with 81 hundreds and 114 50s.
Just for the cricket illiterate Dutton, is Bradman's more runs because Bradman is infinitely better, or was the standard of cricket less? And do you know what I mean? You always get into that debate about most sports. Has everyone got better? So when you break records now, is it more difficult?
Your thing is that Don Bradman he played 52 tests, scored 6,996 runs, an average of 99.94. Now, he only really played against England, and I think he had a couple of tests against India towards the end. He played on, and this is always the biggest argument, uncovered pitches. Now, what that meant was once the game started, the pitch was left open to the elements. It pissed down all night, tough, get out and bat. It's cracking the flags, tough, get out and bat. As we know now, any bit of rain, the big hover covers come on. So the pitches don't tend to break up as much, so they stay better for batting. But Bradman scored an awful lot of his runs, and because he was so successful, he only probably had to bat once in an awful lot of those games. So he's got all these runs in a lot fewer innings than most other people.
Okay.
I should point out as well, just while we are comparing, so we hear those statistics, I'll just throw this one as well. 609 first-class matches, 48,426 runs, a high score of 261 not out, an average of 58.63, 151 first-class hundreds, and 238 50s. And that would be Sir Geoffrey Boycott.
Wow. And people now just know him as the annoying guy who people take the mick out of on TMS.
Exactly, the Boycott bat. Not putting him in Tendulkar's class, because if you want to watch the modern day version of Don Bradman, you watch Tendulkar. You want to watch the modern day version of Jeff Boycott? Hello, Mr. Trott. How are we, sir?
Which is ironic, because Jeffrey likes to slag Trott off as much as humanly possible. When, as you said, he was slow and methodical, just like Jonathan is.
There's nothing like your own dung to make you realise how much you stink.
There is done. So while we're still on Sachin, I believe you've got a couple of questions that you think we should have a think about.
Indeed, one of them, and this is the great thing about cricket, especially the whole time I've been watching it, is that there are always points of comparison between standout players. Like in the 1980s, we had the four all-rounders. We had Ian Botham, Kapil Dev, Imran Khan, and Sir Richard Hadley. So you can always compare and conjecture who's the best. Sachin Tendulkar, pretty much the whole time of his career, was batting for India, and for the West Indies was batting Brian Charles Lara. So the question is, who was better? And there's always this thing. It's Lara asked at his final game in the 2007 World Cup. He asked the fans, "I will ask you one question: did I entertain you?" And they all cheered, and he said, "Then I did okay." Sachin Tendulkar will never ever take that, because he's a lot shyer, doesn't like the limelight, and you can argue that playing on to get to 200 tests, I think, smacks of me. In that Sachin Tendulkar probably hasn't been worth his place for 2 years, but at least when Lara went out, Lara was still in the height of his powers.
I hope no one from India is actually listening, because they just switched off. Tried to find out where you live and hunted you down. I know. What I would say is lefties always look better. Lara was a lefty, and although this latest incarnation of Sachin, I suppose over the last 2 years, does strike me as a me concept. Lara, it was always levelled at Lara that he was always more interested in scoring runs than winning games.
Mm-hmm. Brian Lara has, at one time or another, has held 3 world batting records. That's twice he's had the highest score in a test match, and he has the highest first-class score in cricket history. And the result in all 3 of those games, draws.
And that's always been levelled at him, and I think that's something that may tip the balance in Sachin's favour for a vast majority of people.
The thing as well about Tendulkar is that one of his best knocks was against Australia, and he didn't drive the ball. He didn't try and cover drive the ball at all. So he stopped being he stopped being an artisan, as it were, and became more of a craftsman. So he worked for his runs, he dug them out, and then there's always this idea that ever since that innings, the cover drive he put it away. It's a bit like Tony Hancock when he first realised he could use idiot boards. He never worked as hard to learn the lines again. So Tendulkar, when he realised, hey, I don't have to drive the ball, so I'm not going to get caught behind or it slips to still score runs. Oh, fine, I'll just nerdle it to leg and whatnot. It's a point, you can argue it. You speaking to someone who thinks the cover drive is the quintessentially beautiful thing in cricket, apart from the on drive, obviously. But the other argument, of course, with the one is, in full flow, you'd prefer to watch, certainly over the last part of the career, you'd want to watch Lara. As you say, he's a left-handed batsman, massive backlift, and he'd flay attacks. Whereas Tendulkar used to take you apart with, 1,000 pinpricks to kill you. Lara would go for the one rapier stroke, and it was just more It was more exciting to watch when he was in the mood, from my point of view.
So, Dutton, just two questions from you before we drip off this. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Sachin Tendulkar got the highest score in one-day internationals. Is that right?
He did.
He's got 200.
He was the first man to score 200 in a one-day international. He's since been joined and overtaken by Virender Sehwag.
Oh, Sehwag's got one as well. Okay. So that answers the question of will that ever be broken? The answer is yes. But do you think a lot of people will get to 200 now?
The way the game is going, I don't think it'll be too long before we see a score of 500 in a one-day international. It used to be get 300. Well, that's gone. Now, I mean, we saw the other day India chasing down 360 to win with 6 overs left and only losing 1 wicket. It's a batsman's game now, so...
You get in that, is it the Bullring or Centurion Park in South Africa where Australia and South Africa scored 420 or 430 each? Do you know what I mean? And that was, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago now?
Yeah, 2006, yeah.
Yeah, so I think... And 200 tests done, it's a wonderful achievement. Is anyone ever going to sniff that?
No. Apart from England, Australia, no one plays enough Test cricket anymore. I mean, in those days, one-day cricket wasn't the cash cow it is now. There was no 2020, so India and the subcontinent played as much Test cricket as they could. Nowadays, the boards have got much more control, and it's more about the almighty dollar. And the dollar is, you have one-day international tournaments like this meaningless one they're playing against Australia. And it is meaningless. I'll stand up against anyone. There's players there who are going to be potentially going to be picking up knocks. Michael Clarke isn't playing because he wants to be fit for the Ashes, but doesn't know if he will be. And so, someone else will get injured. There's no money to Test cricket in India. There really isn't. They're not interested. So to have someone, and England play on average 12 or 13 tests a year, and might be depending on the tour. So as the Cook's on, I think he's on 95. And he's only 27. So he needs to play another 105. It could happen. But it'll be very unlikely. I think because the game's just... I mean, the game has moved on to such an extent now that with so little rest and recuperation between matches and series, if someone does play 200 tests, the day after it finishes, he'll drop dead.
Yeah, it is a pretty wonderful achievement. I think... All we like to say is that if you've got any thoughts on Sachin Tendulkar, on the players that we picked as vital to a nation or a sport, comment on Lara or the records that Sachin's got, drop me and Dutton a tweet. I'm at Mainzy7 and Dutton is at ndutton13, and we'll continue the debate via the medium of Twitter.
Excellent.
Okay. Again, no sound effects, Dutton, so I'm just going to woo. I'll fix that next week. Waxes, I promise.
Please do.
So, in recent months, you may have noticed that me and Neil have been pimping ourselves on Twitter due to us writing for a reputable NFL UK website called UK Endzone. And one of the things that we do is a Mainz and Dutts back and forth, which in no way, shape or form is similar to anything that Bill Simmons has ever done with any of his friends.
No, not as. I don't even know why you'd say that.
Neither do I. But what's found out is that people actually like it, Dutton. People actually like me and you talking, hence the podcast. People actually like me and you emailing each other and putting it on a website. Who would have thought this 10 years ago? Maybe we should tell Melia and Gaz, who constantly told us to shut up for 15 years.
Yeah, we should of course point out that Melia and Gaz don't listen to podcasts and don't go on Twitter. And
wouldn't even know what NFL was, but whacked him in the face.
Exactly.
But we thought, well, why not look at other dynamic duos on TV, who have been those double acts, so to speak, the dynamic duos that we've always liked, or people have liked. So we wanted to talk to you guys about them. So Dutton, hit me up with the first one.
Well, the first one, I discussed this. We said this the other day. It's of our generation. It's as close to a double act, a tandem. It's Joey and Chandler from Friends.
When Friends was funny, and when Joey and Chandler were on it, it was absolutely magnificent.
Yeah, it was just it was a perfect relationship between a lovable dimwit and a slightly neurotic, sarcastic, smart ass, basically.
Which is basically anyone we know, and me and you both being Chandler.
Pretty much, yeah.
But for some reason we decided we wanted to do a podcast with two Chandlers rather than the Joey and the Chandler.
Yeah, we had all Bing and no Ding.
All Bing and no Ding, indeed. I've noticed that Chal on Twitter has started following Joey Tribbiani. You noticed that the last couple of days? He retweeted them on a couple of times.
It is one of those, just like, I may as well follow him, because I'm pretty sure I'm getting all of his repertoire when Chal retweets it.
Exactly. Charles filling up my timeline with Joey Tribbiani. I mean, it's a one of the most famous shows of the past 15, 20 years, isn't it? And there's probably two things about it, and that's Ross and Rachel at the start, and then Chandler and Joey probably going forward. That's what people paid to watch, so to speak.
Yeah. It was, obviously, I'm pretty confident, unless circumstances take a huge change, I'm never going to live in a New York apartment with one of my best mates, but I think if I did, that's how I'd want it. Nice open plan, big Barker lounges, huge telly, and a foosball table.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, mate, all the way. So, my first one is like the English drunk equivalent of Joey and Chandler, which would be Gary and Tony from Men Behaving Badly. So it's like we in the American world you would be Chandler and Joey, but in Britain you've got to be Gary and Tony. That's how it works, because we'd be drunk all the time and we'd have really bad relationships or really good relationships, or relationships we didn't want but we were in, or relationships we wanted to be in but we couldn't be in, and then we'd sing really loud and really drunk in the middle of the street. Yeah,
and we sit there talking absolute waffle.
We do that now.
True.
And people listen, and thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. But yeah, I always think that only in Britain could you get away with Men Behaving Badly. So America, I just don't see it working.
Well, they did try it in America, but they toned down the laddishness. So it's a bit like, so what is this? Men behaving?
Exactly. The point of the whole point of the show was it's two buffoons basically getting drunk and making idiots out of themselves. If you take away the buffoons and getting drunk, they're just men in a house.
Yeah. But hey, how was work? Beer? No thanks.
No thanks. Okay. I'm doing Stoptober.
Yeah.
Bravo, morons. Go on, Dutts. Hit me up with a new one.
Continuing the drunken theme, but again moving back to America, and not drunken because that was never the impression that came across. I have Mr. Cliff Claven and Mr. Norm Peterson from Cheers. Now, this was just having over the years frequented an awful lot of pubs. You see the pub friends. People they may not be friends. The only thing they've really got in common is they sit and drink in the same pub. Should
we describe the one time that we had a quote unquote local and the people that we had?
Yeah, we had Shipman.
We had Lala 3 Heineken.
Lala 3 Heineken, and of course the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Psycho Fruity.
We won't drift into them right now, but if you do again want to know about them, just tweet us. Psycho Fruity, Lala 3 Heineken, and Shipman. I think
Shipman might be fairly self-explanatory.
Shipman's pretty self-explanatory. Lala 3 Heineken, probably not. Psycho Fruity, you can probably guess.
Yeah, but say Cliff and Norm. I mean, Cliff is a postman, and he was boring. He just stored this incredible amount of knowledge for no apparent reason, and just loved to tell you about it. Whereas Norm was just a fat drunk, basically. Yeah. But it was just it was a bond between like-minded souls. It was beautiful. And we've all got that boring friend who knows lots of stuff. I know, I am him.
I was going to say, you haven't got that boring friend who knows stuff. You are that boring friend who knows stuff.
Yeah, if there's no one else there, I'll stop what I'm doing and listen to what I've got to say myself. Just to hear it said.
The ironic thing about the Cheers characters is now, I remember them from two things. I remember Norm from Da Bears and the other guy from every Disney Pixar film.
Mm-hmm.
And I should really remember them from Cheers, and I don't.
Well, that's your bad.
That's a me problem. But if you do like to laugh, I'd recommend YouTubing Da Bears from Saturday Night Live. I'm going to drift child here in dynamic duos, and also maybe a bit political. I'm going to give you Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street, Dutton.
Okay.
These were two fellas who lived together in a house. Not
Didn't
much
they
said.
sleep in the same bed?
Slept in the same bed. No one talked about it. It's fine.
No.
It doesn't matter. That's cool.
Never thought they'd go all the way, would you?
Well, Neil, it's Bert and Ernie, for God's sake. I said that I'd say at this point that Kate does the best Hey Bert in the world, according to Kate. But yeah.
Oh, hey Bert.
Hey Bert. But it's
that
just
wasn't Kate, by the way.
That wasn't Kate.
That was me.
It just, for cultural significance, and because Sesame Street's been going for like 1 billion years, I think they are pretty important in the world. Now, okay, they're not funny and they don't get drunk, but I thought we should bring them up.
Yeah. See, it's the thing that, going back to the earlier point, Morecambe and Wise always used to sleep in the same bed.
Yeah, but I knew
in sketches,
yeah,
not away from TV.
Oh, I assume not, because their wives wouldn't be very impressed.
No.
Dutton, who have you got next?
Well, this was a more modern one, and it wasn't intended to be a double act, but the way they ended an early show, they thought they had a relationship they could develop and build, and that's the relationship between Alan Shaw and Denny Crane in Boston Legal. Most episodes ended with those two on a balcony, nice little glass of scotch and a nice cigar, just shooting the breeze.
See,
nice suits, no less.
See, I've never seen this show, and that's a shame on me. Dad's got it, as Mum and Dad have watched them all. They got the DVD box set, and they say it's brilliant, and I know you say it's brilliant, but no offence to you, you're slightly biased, as you would watch anything with William Shatner in, or listen to anything that William Shatner's ever done.
I now deem William Shatner to be more Denny Crane than he is Captain Kirk.
Wow. Now, if that doesn't get tweets, I don't know what will. Neil Dutton, quintessential Trekker, just said that he thinks, I can't help it, Dutton, I'm just going to keep on calling you Trekkers forevermore. Sorry, bravo JJ Abrams. Is that Dutton thinks that William Shatner is now not Kirk but Denny Crane? Please tweet him appropriately.
Just anyone who... There's one episode where he's playing... Denny Crane is a formerly wildly successful attorney who's a slight egomaniac. Basically, William Shatner is playing William Shatner plus 4. And in one scene, they're in a pre-trial hearing. The judge is saying something, and Denny Crane just goes, "Judge, you're old. I'm old. Let's do this." And it goes to trial. It's just brilliant. But again, it's a duo, and James Spader's performance of Alan Shaw, he's clipped, he's refined, he's ever so slightly smarmy, but it's a fabulous show. It needs to be watched, and it makes it, put it this way, some of the scenery of this show, it makes Boston look absolutely beautiful. Fantastic. Linking back to Cheers again.
Linking back to Cheers, Dutton, double up on Cheers. Final one for me, Dutton, is actually not quite one. And it's Ronnie Barker and everyone else. Whether that be with Mr. Corbett, Mr. David Jason, or Mr. Richard Beckinsale. So whether it is, the two Ronnies, whether it be Open All Hours or whether it be Porridge, each one of those shows or comedy sketches, whichever we're talking about, I loved as a child and still love now and still love to watch, like the Phantom Raspberry Blower in the two Ronnies still makes me laugh to this day. Some of the Porridge scenes are just epic, as is Open All Hours, and Ronnie Barker in them is just absolutely wonderful, and the other guys in it are also absolutely wonderful, but I always thought that Ronnie guided them along and made it flow and made it work.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say with David Jason in Early Hours. David Jason was also in Porridge in several episodes, playing an older character. So in one he went to playing, he was Granville, he was a young child almost compared to a quite old Arkwright. Whereas in Porridge, the roles were slightly reversed. Have you seen, by the way, that they're making a special of Open All Hours?
This is a bad idea.
Yeah, they don't need it, because Granville was a funny second banana to the Big Cheese. The Big Cheese isn't there, And quite frankly, I'm not interested in what Granville did next.
I have to say I'm not either. You know, if Arkwright isn't trying to get into that nurse's pants, I don't want to know about it.
Yeah. See, BBC, anyone else, if you had a great sitcom in the 1970s, leave it alone. There must be new ideas. Give me a call. Call me. I've got ideas.
Yeah. I would do. I will put his number out later.
Yeah. We're a nation that in the last 18 months inflicted plebs on the viewing public. My God, man.
There's no way on this earth that me and you could, in half an hour, can come up with a better idea than plebs.
I've come up with a better idea while we've been doing this pod.
Exactly.
In my head, it just needs working.
Exactly done. Final one from you, sir.
Final one of the great double acts. Initially, it's been 2 series. It started when they were young boys. They went away. They came back, and that's Bob Ferris and Terry Collier, also known as the Likely Lads. I mean, the best thing about this show is you actually watch it, and now with the 2020 of hindsight, you can look at it and say these two didn't like each other one little bit, did they? Because it comes across as there's always that bit of frostiness about it. But some of the scenes, some of the episodes, I mean, the one where they're trying not to find out the football score. Can you imagine now in the 21st century trying to not find out a football score?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, but just things like that. I mean, it's just wonderful comedy, great duo, and fabulously well written. And again, we're linking back to yours. It was Dick Clements and Ian Lafreniere again.
Yes, wonderfully well acted, wonderfully well written, wonderful 2 shows really, and both as you said, and that you look back and think, why are these two ever in the same room together? They absolutely look like they despise each other.
Yeah. Well, that's why it was never repeated. The Likely Lads, the Likely Lads is never on. But whatever happened to the Likely Lads? James Bolam wouldn't let it be repeated, and Rodney Bewes was always slightly better about that because he's hardly done anything.
I was going to say he's never been on another TV show, has he?
Yeah, so he could probably have done with the money.
Whereas the other guy's grander in my pocket or whatever.
Exactly.
Coming to a TV near you soon, don't I guess?
Yeah.
It's an awful TV show. Try and keep your daughter away from it. That's all I'll say on the matter. So they're Mainz and Dutts dynamic duos. If you've got your own, again, tweet us, drop us a line, see what you think. More than open to suggestions.
Yeah, we'll do the Brian Clough. We'll look at what you said. We'll consider it. We'll look at it both ways and decide we were right.
Of course we will, Dutton. That's how it works. This has been a new IT. This has been Son sound effects. This has been episode 52 of Waxing the Record Mainz and Dutts. Thanks for downloading.